You clicked on a story with a title that sounds strange, but this one ties to a real boy from Viking times. A boy no one named in sagas. A boy no skald praised. A boy the tribe ignored for years. Yet he changed their fate. He shifted the future of every man, woman, and child who shared his hall. Not with strength, not with wealth, with something far quieter. His tribe slept through long winters, worked through endless storms, fought raiders, buried kin, but no one noticed the boy who watched from the edges. Until one night when he stepped into a danger the adults feared. And from that moment on, the tribe spoke his name in low tones. You clicked this video to hear the truth of the forgotten Viking boy who changed his entire tribe's fate. You meet him as he stands alone near a longhouse wall. No one looks at him. No one calls his name. He watches the adults shape their lives with strong hands and sharp voices. He listens to their fears, their plans, their anger, their hope, and each night he hears what they refuse to face. When danger nears, they dismiss him. When storms rise, they shelter him. When raiders walk the valley, they hide him. But he sees what they ignore. He hears what they miss. And one night, when the tribe reaches its breaking point, this forgotten boy takes a step that saves every soul who once looked past him. Before we begin the full story, settle in with me. Tell me where you watch from tonight. Let your breath slow. Let your shoulders drop. Bring a blanket close or warm your hands near a soft light. Ease yourself into the quiet. This channel moves with calm steps. If you enjoy these Viking nights, you support the storytelling with a gentle like or a soft tap of subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you want more stories about the silent people who shaped their tribes. Take one more deep breath. Let the day fall away. This tale follows a boy who lived on the edge of his hall. A boy no one watched until the night he saved them all. The wind pressed against the longhouse and filled the cracks with a thin whistling sound. The tribe slept in small clusters around the fire. The flames burned low. Ash drifted in soft red waves. Outside, the valley lay deep under snow. The river froze in long sheets. The moon hid behind heavy clouds. Near the far wall of the hall, a small boy sat awake. His name was Ori. His hair fell over his face in tangled strands. His clothes hung loose. He kept his hands on his knees and listened to every sound in the dark. He listened to the father near the center snore through his beard. He listened to the mother near the fire shift under thick furs. He listened to the boots near the entry crack in the cold. He listened to the snow hit the roof with thin taps. The tribe slept tight. But Ori did not sleep. He never slept early. He watched the hall because no one else did. He felt each shift in the air long before others noticed. He heard the change of wind hours before storms hit. He sensed when wolves moved near the fence. He felt when raiders crossed the ridge. The elders never asked him. The warriors never listened. They laughed when he tried to warn them. They told him to sleep. They told him to keep silent. They told him he held no place in the tribe yet. But Ori watched anyway. He leaned forward and breathed slow. Snow tapped harder. The wind changed pitch. The night shifted. Something moved in it. He rose on quiet feet. He stepped past the sleepers and moved closer to the door. He placed his ear against the wood. His breath stilled. Nothing. Then something. A faint crunch beneath the storm. Not wind, not snow. Steps. Slow, careful, drawn out. He pressed both hands to the door and listened for the pattern. He counted breaths between each step. He tracked the distance. Whoever walked did not rush. Whoever walked did not fear the cold. He whispered to himself, "Not wolf." His eyes shifted to the window slit. Snow blew sideways, thick and sharp. He dropped to his knees and ducked under the wood frame. He pressed his face close to the gap. The yard looked white and empty. The fence stood half buried. The livestock shed leaned under the weight of snow. No shape moved, but the steps came again, this time closer. He stood straight. Someone stands outside the hall. He backed away from the door. His heart beat hard but steady. Not fear, not panic. A strange calm. He turned and stepped toward the fire pit. He knelt beside the sleeping warriors. He pushed the shoulder of the first man. The man groaned and turned away. Ori whispered into his ear, "Someone walks outside." The man waved him off. "Sleep." Ori gripped his arm harder. "I hear steps." The man kept his eyes closed. "Snow shifts." "Go lie down." Ori looked at the next man, a younger one, strong arms, long hair. "Wake." The young warrior blinked and rubbed his eyes. "What? Someone stands outside." The young warrior shook his head. "Storm fools your ears." Ori stepped back. "I know this sound," the young warrior grunted. "Then let the elders check it. Not you." Ori turned from him and walked to the far end of the hall. He reached the elder who slept near the wall with his staff across his chest. Ori knelt beside him and touched the top of the staff. The elder opened his eyes. "Boy steps outside," Ori said. The elder stared at him through dim light. "Storm brings sounds." Ori shook his head. "Not storm, not wolf. Man." The elder sat up slow. "How many?" "One." The elder closed his eyes for a moment. He lifted the staff and stood with effort. His breath steadied. He placed his hand on Ori's head. "You listen well." Ori nodded. The elder walked toward the door. Ori followed. They stopped at the same place Ori stood before. The elder pressed his palm to the wood. He leaned in. He held still for long seconds. Then he nodded once. "You hear true." Ori swallowed. "Who is it?" The elder shook his head. "We find out without fear." The elder tapped the staff twice to wake the nearest warriors. They stirred and sat up with confused faces. "What now?" one asked. The elder pointed at Ori. "The boy hears steps outside." The warriors frowned. "Storm tricks his ears." The elder glared. "Storm tricks your pride, not his." The warriors stood and gathered their arms. The father of the hall approached. "What trouble?" The elder answered. "One man stands outside." The father grabbed his axe. "Raiders move in bands, not alone." The elder nodded. "This one steps light, not like raiders." The mother woke and gathered the children near her. Ori watched them. He felt the mother's eyes on him, not harsh, not soft, curious. The father stepped to the door. "We open slow." The elder blocked him. "No steel first, words first." The father lowered his axe a little. "You speak, I hold guard." The elder looked at Ori. "You stay behind me." Ori nodded. The father lifted the bar. The elder opened the door a small space. Wind pushed in at once. Snow swirled across the floor. Ori squinted through the white gust. A man stood only a few steps away. His cloak hung torn. His hands held nothing. His breath fogged in slow bursts. Snow covered his shoulders. His face looked worn. He raised one hand. "I seek warmth." The father stepped forward. "You walk alone at night." The man nodded. "I walk from the ridge. Storm took my path." The elder raised his staff. "Who are you?" The man breathed slow. "My name is Runar. I came from the upper valley. My hall fell days past. Smoke took our roof. Fire spread fast. I escaped. Others did not." The father gripped his axe tighter. "Raiders!" Runar nodded. "Yes." The mother stepped forward. You carry no blade. Runar shook his head. I lost mine when I climbed the rocks. The elder lowered his staff. You enter with peace. The father frowned, but did not stop him. Runar stepped inside the hall. Snow fell from his cloak in heavy clumps. He sank to his knees near the fire and held his hands out. Warmth returned to his fingers, slow. The father shut the door and set the bar. Ori watched the man from the side. Runar's eyes shifted around the hall. He counted the number of adults, the number of children, the amount of wood near the fire. He judged the strength of the walls. He judged the readiness of the tribe. Ori saw all of it in Runar's look. He knew what that meant. Runar feared more raiders. The elder sat near him. How many struck your hall? Runar stared at the flames. 6 first. More came after smoke rose. The father placed his axe on the ground, but kept it close. They follow the valleys. Runar nodded. They watch halls that seem weak. They strike at night. They take livestock. They take timber. They leave ashes. The mother's breath caught. They follow here. Runar looked at the door. They follow smoke. The father stood straight. We hold strong. Runar looked him in the eye. They hunt tribe after tribe. They spread fear. They move fast. The hall grew quiet. Only the fire spoke. Ori stepped closer. I heard you before you reached the door. Runar looked at him. You hear storms? Ori nodded. I hear steps. The elder placed his hand on Ori's shoulder. His ears hold truth. Runar studied him. You listen in nights when others sleep. Ori nodded again. I do. Runar's gaze softened. Then your tribe holds strength they do not see. Ori lowered his eyes. He knew the warriors watched him with confusion and disbelief. They never praised him, but Runar's words held weight. The father knelt across from Runar. They hunt your path. They reach us by dawn? Runar shook his head. Storm slows them, but not long. The elder tapped his staff. We prepare. We guard the fence. We bar the stalls. We gather wood. The father nodded. We wake all adults. The hall shifted from rest to action with quick steps. Warriors strapped on belts and checked blades. Women tied furs tighter and pulled children toward the corner beds. The father and young warriors moved toward the door to inspect the yard. The elder walked to the window slit and studied the valley. Ori followed him. They come from the ridge, Ori said. The elder nodded. You hear their tracks? Ori shook his head. I hear the night change. The elder smiled with tired eyes. Your ears hold more than sound. Ori watched the snow. The storm shifted again. Snow fell slower now. Wind softened. The night held a stillness that knocked against his bones. Runar stood with effort. They struck my hall in stillness like this. The father stepped beside him. Then we do not sleep. The warriors stepped out into the yard. Ori followed to the door and looked through the gap before they closed it again. Snow covered the world in white silence. The moon rose behind thin clouds. The fence posts looked like frozen spears. The livestock stalls stood dark. No movement, no tracks, no threat. But Ori felt something, a weight in the chest, a pressure in the air. Runar stepped beside him. You sense them? Ori nodded. They stand far, watching. Runar looked toward the trees. They test before they strike. The father lifted his axe and scanned the ridge. We watch them back. Ori stepped into the yard. The warriors spread out in lines. The father watched him, but did not call him back. Ori closed his eyes. The world felt cold, but quiet. Too quiet. He whispered. They wait behind trees. The father turned fast. Where? Ori pointed toward the far corner of the valley. There. The warriors lifted spears. The elder stepped outside. The mother held the door open wider to let light spill across the snow. The father squinted. I see nothing. Ori stepped forward again. They hide low. Runar watched him. How many? Ori breathed slow. 3. The father frowned. You guess. Ori shook his head. I hear the way wind breaks around them. The father blinked. The elder nodded. He hears what we do not. The father raised his axe. 3 men hide in the far ridge. The warriors moved toward the fence. Snow crunched under their boots. The wind shifted again. Ori watched the ridge without blinking. Then he whispered, 4 now. The father narrowed his eyes. You sure? Ori nodded. Yes. Runar's face tightened. 4 raiders wait for weakness. The father looked at the warriors. We return inside. We hold the hall. We face them at the door, not in open snow. The tribe moved back fast. The father closed the door and barred it strong. The warriors lined the walls. The mother pulled the children behind the central beam. Runar gripped the stick the elder gave him. The elder lifted his staff. Ori stood in the center of the hall. The fire lit his face. The father looked at him. Boy, you hear first. You warn first. You tell us when they move. Ori felt his heart pound hard, strong, steady. He nodded. I hear. The hall held its breath. The night outside pressed close. Ori closed his eyes and placed both hands on the floor. He whispered. They stepped closer. The hall turned silent enough to hear every breath. The walls creaked under the weight of wind and frost. The fire settled into a steady glow. Ori kept both palms on the wooden floor. He breathed slow through his nose. His eyes stayed half open. The warmth of the hall faded from his focus. He listened only to the night. The father stood near the door with his axe ready. The warriors lined the back wall. The mother held the daughter close. The elder pressed his staff to the floor and waited. Runar watched Ori with sharp eyes. Ori whispered. They stepped through deep snow. The father leaned close. How far? Ori closed his eyes again. Not near the fence, far side of the valley. They wait. Runar stepped forward. They test your strength. The father nodded. They learn how many guard the hall. Ori kept still. His breathing found a rhythm that shut out the fire sounds and the shifting furs behind him. Only the outside remained. He whispered again. 4, moving slow, not in line, spread wide. The father looked at the elder. They hunt with caution. The elder nodded. They want to pull us out. Ori raised his head. Do not go out. The father blinked. You sense that? Ori nodded. They watch door. They wait for anger. The warriors grip their blades harder. Their pride rose in their faces. But the father lifted one hand to stop them. You heard the boy. We hold ground here. Wind pushed against the longhouse again. The fire flickered. Smoke climbed through the vent. The mother rocked the daughter slow. Runar walked toward the window slit and leaned close. I see nothing. The father spoke low. They hide well. Ori stood and walked toward the center of the hall. He stared at the door. When they reached the fence, they changed their steps. The father frowned. Change how? Ori pointed at the floor. They step light now. But near the fence they step fast. They strike soon. The warriors looked at each other. The father tightened his grip on the axe. We prepare. He signaled 2 warriors to guard the door. 2 more stood near the back wall. Runar positioned himself near the fire, ready to swing the staff he held. The elder stood near the mother. Ori stayed in the center. He took small breaths. He felt the weight of the night like cold hands pressing on his shoulders. The father glanced toward him. Tell us when they move again. Ori closed his eyes once more. He listened deep. His ears caught faint shifts. Snow pressed, wind slowed. Light footsteps moved faster now. He whispered. They reached the fence. The father stepped toward the door. Ready. The warriors raised blades. Ori tilted his head. One stops, 3 move. The father nodded. Then they strike from 2 sides. The elder tapped his staff on the ground. Stand firm. A crack sounded outside. Wood snapped. Snow fell from the roof. The daughter covered her ears. The mother pulled her close. Another crack. The father raised his axe high. They break the fence. Runer spoke between breaths. They use broken posts as spears. The father nodded. We face them before they reach the wall. Ori stepped closer to the door. Wait. The father looked at him. When? Ori closed his eyes. Now. A heavy thud slammed against the door. The father held firm. Another thud. Hard. The wood shook. Warriors braced their shoulders against it. Snow hit the roof as if pushed by angry hands. Ori whispered. One climbs the side. The father jerked his head up. Roof. The warriors looked up toward the beams. The elder shouted. Cover the vent. Runer grabbed a fur and climbed onto the raised platform. He pressed the fur across the smoke hole. Snow sifted down from above. A shadow passed over the vent. Runer shouted. He tries to drop through, the father called out. Push him back. Runer jammed the staff upward. A grunt sounded from above. The shadow shifted. Snow fell thicker. The raider lost balance and slid down the far side of the roof. The father lowered his axe. He comes to the door now. The warriors braced again. The door shook a 3rd time. Ori whispered. Another reaches the back wall. The father turned. How many at the door? Ori breathed slow. 2. The father nodded. 1 climbs again. 1 circles left. The son of the tribe's leader stepped forward. How do you hear all that? Ori lifted his chin. The storm hides sound, but not their feet. Another hard slam hit the door. The father held strong. The warriors pushed back. The hinges groaned. The mother whispered to the daughter. Ori hears the night like others hear talk. The elder raised his staff and planted it firm. They tire soon. They stand in deep snow. Ori shook his head. No. They wait for 1 more. The father looked down at him. More come. Ori nodded. 1 far behind, steps heavy, he holds weight. Runar's eyes widened. A leader. The father tightened his grip. We face him too. Outside, the snow stopped for a moment. The wind fell silent. The night held 1 long breath. Then heavy steps approached the fence. Slow, confident, strong. The father heard it too now. Runar whispered. He comes with calm. He leads them. The father listened. He walks straight. He tests no walls. He fears none. Ori stared at the floor. He stops before a door. The father nodded. Then he speaks. A deep voice sounded outside. Calm, cold, certain. Open your hall. The father raised his chin. We hold our own, the voice answered. Open, or we burn you. The elder stepped forward. Fire fails in a storm. The leader outside laughed once. Storm ends now. The wind died. Snow eased. The night held stillness again. Ori felt something new. A pull in the chest. A pressure behind the ribs. He whispered. He waits for fear. The father took a slow breath. We give none, the leader outside called again. Then face us. The father spoke loud. This hall holds strength. The leader stayed silent. Then footsteps, moving away from the door, slow, controlled. The father frowned. He leaves? Ori shook his head. He moves to the back. He breaks where he tested first. The father pointed to the warriors. Move! Warriors shifted toward the back wall. Ori stepped near the mother to stay clear of blades. Runer held position near the vent. A heavy crack sounded against the rear planks. Snow dropped from beams, dust rose. Another crack, a wide one, the board strained. The father shouted, "Brace it!" Warriors slammed their shoulders against the wall. The planks bent inward. The raiders pushed from outside. Their grunts reached through the cracks. Ori whispered, "Another climbs the roof." He reaches the top. Runar climbed again toward the vent with the fur in hand. The father yelled, "Keep him out!" Runar jammed the staff upward again. A hand gripped the edge of the vent. Fingers scraped wood. Runar slammed the staff down on the knuckles. The hand slipped. The father swung his axe into the lower plank where the raiders pushed. The wood split outward. The raider on the other side jumped back. Ori felt the shift. They pull back. The father lowered his axe. They run? Ori closed his eyes. They run. They regroup. The father stepped toward the door. "Then Ori snapped his eyes open. "No, stay inside." The father froze. "Why?" Ori breathed slow. "They set trap outside. They wait for rush. They hide near the stalls. They want you in open snow." Runar nodded. "This is how my hall fell." The father stepped back from the door. "We hold." The hall went quiet again. Only the fire crackled. Snow dropped from the roof in soft piles. The tribe breathed together. The warriors lowered their blades, but stayed ready. The elder spoke with steady voice. "They test us again." Ori nodded. "They learn us." Runar sat near the fire. "They strike again before dawn." The father turned to Ori. "Do they stay near?" Ori closed his eyes once more. He listened. Minutes passed. The tribe waited. Then he whispered, "They move away, slow. They leave the fence. They walk back into trees. They split in paths." Runar frowned. "They search weak halls." The elder nodded. "They return if they fail to find one." The father lowered his axe. "Then we breathe now, but we do not rest." Ori stepped toward the fire. Warmth touched his face again. "They follow 3 trails. 2 search lower valley. 1 hunts ridge," Runar whispered. "They hunt the woman who walked north." The father looked at him. "She left hours before." The elder tapped his staff. "She strikes them, or they strike her." The mother closed her eyes for a moment. "Storms hold many fates." The father knelt in front of Ori. "Boy, you heard what no one else heard. You held the hall. You warned us when danger neared." Ori looked at the floor. "I listen." The father lifted his chin. "You lead us tonight." Ori's breath caught. "Me?" The elder stepped beside them. "Your ears guide this tribe now." The warriors watched him with new eyes, not mocking, not dismissing, tense, respectful. Ori felt heat rise in his chest. Not fear, not pride, something new, something strong. The father stood. "We follow your warning. We shape our night to your hearing." Ori nodded slow. "Then I tell you what the night holds." The hall returned to steady motion. The warriors checked their blades. The father poured water into a clay cup for Runar. The elder closed the window slit. Ori walked to the far side of the hall. He knelt. He placed his ear to the floor again. He listened. The fire hummed. The tribe breathed. The wind shifted. Snow softened. And far in the valley, faint steps moved again. But not toward them. Not yet. He whispered, "We have time, but not long." The hall settled into a tense stillness as the tribe waited for Ori's next words. Firelight played across the beams. Shadows crawled over the walls. Snow slid down the roof in slow sheets. The storm quieted until the world outside sounded thin and sharp. Ori stayed on his knees. His palms pressed the floor. His breath even. His focus deep. The father paced near the door with steady steps. The warriors looked toward Ori as if each breath he took held a message. The mother wrapped the daughter in another layer of fur. The elder stood near them, head bowed, staff anchored on the ground. Runar sat near the fire and rolled his shoulders as warmth returned to his stiff arms. Ori whispered, "They walked the ridge." Runar leaned forward. "How many?" Ori kept his eyes shut. "3. The father frowned. 3 went there before. Ori shook his head. "New 3. Steps heavier, thick boots. They walk straight." Runar's face stiffened. "They bring the strong ones now." The elder tapped his staff, "So they push harder." Ori nodded. "They test more." The father looked toward the window slit. "Do they come here?" Ori inhaled through his nose. "Not yet." They watch the far paths. They learn the valley shape. Runar rubbed his hands. They plan strike at dawn. One warrior stepped forward. "We strike first." Ori opened his eyes. "No." The warrior stiffened. "Why not?" Ori sat back on his heels. "Snow deep. We slow. They move fast in trees. They know open ground better." The father nodded. "He is right." The warrior lowered his blade. Ori pressed his ear to the wall. He breathed in the small sounds the hall made. He listened for breaks in the storm. He listened for the shifting weight of raiders. Minutes passed. He whispered, "One stays near, far side, alone." Runner stood. The scout. The elder turned. Or the leader. Ori shook his head. "Not leader. Steps too light. Breath thin." Runar nodded. Then he watches the hall close. The father walked to Ori. "Where does he stand?" Ori pointed toward the livestock stalls, near the shed. The father's eyes narrowed. "He checks for weak boards," Ori whispered. "He shifts weight slow." Runar spoke. "He looks for a place to slip through." The father turned to the warriors. "Guard the stalls from inside, not outside." 2 warriors nodded and moved toward the rear of the hall. Ori watched them. "Wait." They stopped. Ori pointed again toward the floor. "He walks closer. He comes around the back. He steps slow. He listens," the father whispered. "He tests our silence." Ori nodded. "Do not speak." The hall fell dead silent. Even the fire seemed to hold still. The tribe waited. Ori listened. Snow fell in small taps. Wind brushed the roof. Then he heard it. A footstep, then another, and one more. "Slow, careful, close," he whispered. "He stands behind the wall." The father pressed his hand to the planks. He felt faint pressure. The wood shifted under a light push. Ori whispered lower. "He leans close. He listens for fear." The father stepped back from the wall and raised his axe. "Let him hear strength." But Ori shook his head. "No sound, no move. Let him hear nothing." The father breathed slow and lowered the axe tip to the floor. The hall stayed still. Outside, the scout waited. Ori felt the man's breath through faint shifts in the wall. The scout pressed his ear to the wood. He listened for talk, for panic, for movement. But the hall held nothing. The scout stepped back. Ori whispered, "He leaves." Runar nodded. Then he tells the leader, "We fear nothing." The father exhaled. "Good." But Ori shook his head. "Not good. They strike harder because they hear silence." Runar looked uneasy. "So they think we hide strength." Ori nodded once. "They strike with all." The father stepped back into the center. "Then we prepare for full force." The warriors spread out. Furs were pulled from the beds to pad the ground for the children. The mother pushed extra firewood into the pit. The elder walked in slow circles as if sensing the hall's pulse. Runar tested the staff and kept his eyes on the vent. Ori stepped toward the door. He placed his ear against it. Snow shifts under heavy boots, far, not near. The father looked at him. "Do they return?" Ori listened again. "Not yet. They hide, they wait, they gather." Runar leaned forward. "They wait for the leader." Ori nodded. "One voice holds them." The mother stepped near them. You hear all those steps through thick snow. Ori looked up at her. I hear what night carries. The mother brushed a lock of hair from his face. Your father heard storms like this. He warned our hall once. You follow him, Ori swallowed. I follow night. The hall warmed with the fire again. The warriors set up crates near the walls to brace weak points. Runar helped lift heavy beams. The elder whispered old lines that guided strength into tired limbs. Ori watched them all. He whispered to himself. They fear, but they hold. Then a new sound broke the stillness, not from outside, from inside. A low cry, a small voice. The tribe held still as all heads turned. The daughter clung to her mother's arm and stared at the vent. Runar looked up. What is it? The daughter lifted a shaking finger. I saw a shadow. The father stepped beneath the smoke hole. A raider climbs again. Runar climbed the stool and pressed the fur tighter. Snow sifted down. A faint scraping came from above, slow, quiet. Ori stepped closer. Not a raider. Runar frowned. Then who? Ori stared at the vent. One small, not man, 4 legs. The elder squinted. Wolf. Ori shook his head. Not wolf. Lynx. She circles roof for warmth. The father lowered his axe. Then she flees the raiders too. Snow fell again as the shadow crossed the vent. The lynx moved away. The daughter exhaled in relief. The elder closed his eyes. Even the wild seek shelter in storms like this. Ori listened again. He heard faint steps far away. He heard slight breaks in the wind. He heard the river thawing beneath its own ice. Time passed slow. Runar rested near the fire. The warriors drank cold water and waited. The mother hummed to soothe the daughter. The father sat against the wall, axe across his knees. The elder stood near the window slit and watched the sky. Ori's breathing grew slower. His senses sharpened. He whispered. They return. The father rose at once. Where? Ori pointed to the far path. They gather near ridge. More now. Runar stood. How many? Ori's eyes narrowed. 7, no, 8. The warriors stiffened. The father spoke. Then dawn strike holds force. Ori nodded. They line in 2 rows. Leader stands in middle. The elder walked closer. You hear the leader's step. Ori nodded again. He drags 1 foot. Old wound. Right side. Runar blinked. Then he is the same who struck Halls in Upper Valley. Ori listened longer. He lifts spear high. He points to us. The father tensed. Dawn brings blood. Ori placed his hand on the floor again. The tribe gathered near him. The fire crackled. The air thickened. He whispered. They wait until snow lightens. They strike when light hits Lower Valley. The father nodded. Then we hold strong. No panic. No weak line. The warriors stood in formation. The mother moved the children behind the biggest beam. Runar held the staff with knuckles white. The elder gripped his own staff tight. Ori stood. They move. The father lifted his axe. Where? Ori closed his eyes. They stepped down the ridge. Slow. In line. They reached the fence soon. The warriors lined the door. The father spoke low. If they break the wall, we draw them to narrow places. We never fight them in open ground. Runar nodded. You block the vent. I block the center. Ori took a deep breath. They step closer. They hold shields close. They lift torches. The father froze. Torches. Runar stiffened. They burn the hall. The elder stepped forward. They burn us if they reach the walls. Ori opened his eyes. Then we stopped them at the door. Wind rose again. Snow whipped across the roof. The sound of boots on frozen ground drew closer. Firelight shook. The father shouted, "Hold the door!" Warriors pressed their shoulders into the wood. The door shook under a first heavy hit. Then another, and a third. Ori whispered. The leader waits behind them. He counts their strikes. The father braced, then let him count strength. The door shook again. Runer shouted. They hold torches. They burn the sides next, the father yelled. 2 men guard left wall. Warriors moved fast. Snow fell from the beams. Ori placed both hands on the floor. He listened. They circled left. 2 men. They pressed torches close. The father pointed to the warriors. Stop them through the gaps. The warriors grabbed long spears and pushed them through the boards. Sparks flew outside. Angry shouts rose. A torch dropped into snow. Ori whispered. Low side, 3 more. The father turned. Guard the right wall. A loud crack echoed as raiders slammed shields into the planks. The wall bent. The mother hugged the daughter close. The daughter whimpered. Ori knelt beside her. No fear. I hear when Tadirm, they fail. She breathed fast. How do you know? Ori listened. Because their steps shake. Another heavy slam hit the door. The hinges groaned. But the father held firm. Sweat rolled down his brow. Runer shouted from above. They climb again! Ori snapped his head upward. 3 climb, not 1. The elder shouted. Brace the platform! Warriors lifted crates under the vent to strengthen the beam. Snow fell harder as raiders hit the roof. Footsteps scraped above. 1 raider pressed near the vent. Runer struck upward with the staff again. A loud grunt sounded. Snow poured through. Ori whispered. 1 falls. A thud hit the far side of the roof. But the door shook stronger now. The leader shouted commands outside. The raiders hit in rhythm. Hard, faster, stronger. Ori stepped forward. The leader moves. The father grit his teeth. Where? Ori's voice grew tight. He steps to the door. He lifts shield. He charges. The father shouted. Brace harder! A massive impact slammed into the door. Warriors cried out as the force knocked them back a step. Snow shook loose from the rafters. The leader shouted again. Another strike came. The door cracked. Ori stepped closer. He felt the air shift. He felt the breath of raiders behind wood. He felt the fire behind him shake. He whispered. 1 more hit. The father raised his axe. Then we strike back. Warriors pushed into position. The elder raised his staff. The mother shielded the children. Runer crouched low with the staff. Outside, boots dug into snow. Inside, hearts pounded. Ori closed his eyes. They rushed the door. The door shuddered under the weight of raiders who pushed with full force. Snow fell in thick waves from the rafters. The warriors braced their shoulders hard against the wood. The father planted his feet. His arms locked. His breath came sharp through his teeth. The elder stood behind him with the staff raised high. Runer crouched under the vent and listened for the next movement above. The fire snapped with each vibration that rolled through the hall. Ori stepped closer to the door. His small hands pressed against the floor again. His breath grew slow. His hearing sharpened. The hall's fear pressed around him, but he drowned it out. He listened only to the outside. He whispered, "They rush again!" The father called out, "Hold!" A heavy crash shook the longhouse. The door bulged inward. A crack shot across the lower hinge. Warriors strained with loud groans. One slipped on the furs but caught himself fast. Snow burst through a splintered gap near the edge. The leader outside shouted, "Strike again!" Ori listened. He lifts his spear. He sets his feet wide. He drives forward now. The father raised his axe. "Brace for it!" The raiders hit the door again. The hinges screamed. The top beam shook. A bowl on the far shelf toppled and rolled across the floor. The mother pulled the daughter deeper behind the central beam. The elder planted his staff into the floor and whispered old words that steadied the warrior's breath. Ori stepped forward. One more strike, and the door breaks low. The father nodded once. Then we take them first. He raised his axe higher and spoke to the warriors through clenched teeth. When they break the door, we strike left. They push right. They hold shields near the center. Aim for gaps. A warrior spat blood from a bitten tongue and nodded. Another raider shouted from outside, "Fire them out!" Ori's head jerked up. Torches. They lift them. The father shouted, "Water skins! Ready!" 2 warriors rushed to the buckets at the fire pit. They soaked thick cloths until dripping. They moved to stand behind the father. Outside, a torch slammed against the wood. Smoke curled through a small crack. Ori whispered. They pressed torches left side. 2 men, the father pointed. "Stop them!" Warriors shoved spears through the gaps. A raider cursed. Light dropped. Snow hissed as the flame died. Runer shouted from above. "Roof again!" Ori lifted his chin. 3 men climb. Fast, Runer scrambled for position. Snow sifted through the vent in thin lines. A raider's shadow passed over it. Runer struck up with the staff. A crack sounded. The raider grunted and slid off the roof. The father kept his eyes on the door. Ready. They hit now. Ori pressed his ear to the wood. He felt the shift of boots, the pull of breath, the way men set their weight before impact. He whispered, "Now!" The leader shouted, "Break it!" The door exploded inward at the bottom. Wood splintered. Snow burst through. The warriors stumbled, but held the top half of the door fast. A shield pushed through the gap. The father roared, "Strike!" Warriors slammed their spears downward through the opening. A raider screamed and fell back. Another pushed through. The father swung hard. His axe struck the edge of a shield. Sparks flew. Ori knelt and looked through the low gap. He saw raiders packed close, their breath white, their eyes wide, their shields raised. One raised a spear for the gap. Ori shouted, "Up! Spear!" A warrior jerked his head back. The spear shot through where his face stood a heartbeat earlier. The warrior slammed his blade down and hit the spear tip aside. The father pushed harder. "Hold them back!" 2 raiders shoved their shoulders into the broken gap. Snow spilled onto the floor. The warriors held, but slipped again. The elder shouted, "Reinforce the beam!" Runar rushed from the vent and grabbed a plank leaning near the wall. He pressed it against the lower half of the door. 2 warriors added their weight. The father raised his axe and pressed harder. Ori listened. Leader steps back. The father stiffened. Why? Ori breathed slow. He signals others. He calls them to circle. Runar's eyes widened. They strike walls again. The father snarled. Hold this line. Outside, 2 raiders ran to the side of the hall. Their boots pounded through snow. The walls shook from new hits. Another torch smashed against the wood. Smoke seeped in thin streams. Ori spun toward the side wall. Flames near right side. A warrior grabbed a wet cloth and pressed it through the gap to smother the ember. Snow pushed through as the torch fell into the drift. The father shouted, "Left side, now!" Another raider slammed a shield into the left wall. The planks bent inward. The elder pushed the staff into the wall and braced it with all his strength. Ori placed his ear to the wall. 2 men there. They push again. Runar grabbed a long spear and thrust it through the plank gaps. A raider yelled and stepped back. The father gritted his teeth. They spread themselves thin. They look for weak wood. Ori listened again. They shift left. 3 now. They strike together. Warriors ran to brace left side. The planks shook hard. Snow dust fell from the rafters. The mother whispered to the daughter, "Hold my arm. Do not look up." Ori Neal walked to the center of the hall. He pressed both hands to the ground. He drew in every sound at once: snow, wind, shouts, steel, breath, footsteps. He sorted them, sorted weight, sorted speed, sorted direction. He whispered, "Leader comes to back wall. 4 men go with him." The father looked toward the warriors at the door. "They want to split us," Runer shouted. "They want us off the door. They want us thin." The father nodded. "We hold the door and back. Nothing else." But Ori looked up. "No, they try something new." The father narrowed his eyes. "What now?" Ori breathed deep. "They step quiet. They line in tight row. They push as one." The father frowned. A full press. Runer's jaw tightened. They pushed the whole wall inward. The elder tapped the staff. "Then we brace the back with weight." The father signaled. "All spare beams, all shields. Now." Warriors moved fast. They stacked crates, shields, and thick logs against the back wall. 2 men pressed shoulders against the planks. Runer held his staff ready. Ori rose from the floor. They hit now. The raiders slammed into the back wall with a force that shook the hall from floor to roof. The fire pit spilled sparks. Bowls toppled. One woman cried out. The mother held her daughter tight. The father roared, "Hold!" The warriors pushed back with all their strength. The planks bent. Nails groaned. The back wall creaked and threatened to split. Ori pressed his hands against the wall. He felt the vibration. He whispered low, "Again." They push again. The raiders hit the wall a second time. Harder. Snow dropped in thick piles from the beams. A log slipped. A gap appeared. The father shouted, "Plug it!" A warrior jammed a shield into the opening. Wood cracked. The raider's spear shot through and scraped his leg. The warrior grunted and pressed harder. Another raider pushed from the side. Ori felt breath on the other side. Heavy, hot, strong, he whispered. "Leader stands there." Runer climbed the stack and pushed down on the logs to brace them, his muscles strained. The father pressed his back against the planks. "They try one more." Ori nodded. "Yes. Last strike." The warriors took deep breaths. The tribe held still. Outside, the leader shouted, "Push!" The raiders slammed the back wall with full force. The planks cracked. One beam split. Snow burst into the hall. A warrior lost footing and fell. The father barked orders. Men scrambled to brace the line. Ori placed his hand against the crack. He whispered through the gap, "You fail!" The raider on the other side snarled. The leader growled, "Break it again!" Ori shook his head. "You fail again!" The father grabbed him by the shoulder and pulled him back. "Stay here." Ori stared at him. He moves. He shifts his weight to left side. He aims lower. The father nodded to the warriors. "Guard lower left." They pressed shields to the spot. The raiders slammed again, but the shields held. Their weight hit wrong. Their push lost strength. Runer shouted, "They lose line." Ori nodded. "Yes, they lose step. They grow tired." The father roared, "Push back!" The warriors shoved forward. The back wall steadied. The raiders stumbled outside. Angry shouts echoed in the valley. Ori whispered, "They step back. They breathe fast. They fail." Runer slid down the crates. "Then they leave?" Ori listened. Slow, deep, not yet. Snow tapped the roof again. The wind picked up. The raiders shifted their steps. Ori caught every move, every pause, every drop of weight. He whispered, "They stand still. They wait for leader." The father leaned close. What does he plan? Ori heard the leader's breath shift. He spoke low. He ordered something with short words. Ori opened his eyes. "He sends one man away." Runar frowned. "Where?" Ori turned toward the front of the hall. Down the valley, fast. The father stiffened. "Why?" Ori swallowed. "He seeks something, or someone." The elder walked closer. "What do you hear?" Ori bowed his head. He seeks help. The father's face tightened. More raiders. Ori nodded once. Yes. He calls more. The hall fell silent. The father looked around the hall. Then dawn holds worse than night. The warriors lowered their blades. Their arms shook with exhaustion. The mother held the daughter close. The elder rested his weight on the staff. Runar stared at the vent. Ori stood still. His chest rose and fell slow. He whispered, "You have time before they return." But not long. The father knelt in front of him. "Then we must shape our plan before dawn." Ori nodded. "I hear when they come. I tell you." The father placed his hand on Ori's shoulder. "Then you guide us until first light." The hall felt heavier than the night outside. Smoke drifted in thin lines toward the vent. The fire burned low. Warriors sat with backs against the wall and tried to steady their breath. The mother held the daughter in her lap. The elder leaned on his staff with eyes closed. Runar warmed his stiff hands near the embers. Ori stood alone in the center. He faced the door. He pressed his palms flat against the floor. His breath slowed. He listened past the hall, past the storm, past the valley itself. He whispered, "The one they sent runs fast. He reaches lower valley." The father approached him. "How far?" Ori inhaled. "He passes river turn. He climbs small ridge." Runar frowned. "Toward old hunting huts." Ori nodded. "Yes, he calls for more men." The warriors exchanged grim looks. The father spoke low. "If more raiders join them, they strike with double strength." Ori kept listening. They wait for him. They stand silent. They hold blades ready. The elder opened his eyes. "Then dawn brings more than 8. Ori nodded. "More come." The hall shifted with worry. The warriors rubbed their arms. The mother bowed her head. The fire snapped. The father stepped closer. "How long until he returns?" Ori breathed in the faint sounds carried by the wind. "Not soon, but before sun lifts high." Runar stood. "Then dawn holds them." Ori whispered, "Yes." The father looked at the warriors. "We shape our hall now. No fear, no rest. We survive." Warriors forced themselves to stand. They lifted crates. They replaced cracked planks. They dragged logs to brace the walls. Runar checked the vent again. The elder stacked stones around the fire to keep sparks tight. Ori walked toward the door and pressed his ear to the wood. He whispered, "The leader still waits." He stands near fence. He breathes slow. He listens. The father scoffed. He waits for fear. Ori nodded. "Yes, he waits for weakness." The mother stepped forward. "He feels no cold?" Ori listened. He stands strong, but his breath holds strain. He grows tired too. Runar crossed his arms. "Then he is not endless." The elder tapped his staff. "No man stands long in snow." Ori closed his eyes again. He shifts weight. He moves toward the trees. He studies ground. The father exhaled. He seeks weak spots still. Ori nodded. Always. The warriors worked around the hall. They lifted heavy beams. They tied furs along cracks. They placed shields where wood softened. One warrior wrapped cloth around his bleeding leg. Another dunked a cracked shield in melted snow to stop sparks. Ori turned his head. "Listen." All fell still. He whispered. "The leader meets 2 men. They speak short. They point north." The father frowned. "North?" Runar stepped beside Ori. "There are no halls north of here." Ori tilted his head. "They track her." The tribe froze. The woman who walked north earlier lingered heavy in every mind. The mother whispered, "She left before storm rose." Runar looked toward the window slit. "They hunt her." The father set his jaw. "She survives if she hides." Ori shook his head. "She walks open ground. She leaves trail. They follow fast." The elder closed his eyes. "Then dawn holds her fate too." Ori returned to listening. His small hands trembled a little, but he stilled them. He pushed fear aside. He measured the wind, the weight of steps, the pulse of the valley. He whispered, "Leader walks back. He returns to waiting place." The father exhaled with force. "Then we plan now, no delay." The warriors circled him. The mother moved the children deeper behind stacked furs. Runar came to stand near Ori. The elder joined them in a loose circle. The father spoke, "We hold inside, but if they bring more, they break walls with weight." A warrior nodded. "We use spears through cracks," another added. "We drop beams when they push through." Runar tapped his staff. "We protect vent, we protect fire." The elder raised his staff. "Fire holds us alive, keep sparks safe." Ori stepped forward. "I hear more." The father turned. "Where?" Ori's breath grew shallow. They moved low, near frozen river. 4 men, not raiders, other tribe. Runar blinked. "Another tribe." Ori nodded. "Yes, they walk quick. They hear shouts. They move toward us." The father's mouth tightened. "Help or trouble?" Ori listened. "They speak worried. Their breath shakes. They come with fear. They seek warm hall." Runar moved fast toward the window. "Then they flee raiders too." The father gripped his axe. "They reach us before dawn?" Ori nodded. "Soon." The father turned to the warriors. "We open door for no one." Runar frowned. "Even if they seek shelter?" The father spoke firm. "A half-frozen man brings risk. Raiders follow close." The elder lowered his head. "True." The mother hugged the daughter. "Then what of them?" Ori whispered. "They stop near ridge. They hide behind rocks." The father tilted his head. "Hide?" Ori nodded. "They see raiders. They fear them." The father stepped toward Ori. "Do they fight them?" Ori listened longer. "No, they flee back. They choose new path." Runar nodded. "They choose life." The father returned to the center. "So it is only us here, only raiders against our hall." The warriors lifted their blades. Ori pressed his palms to the floor again. He whispered. Leader grows impatient. He calls one man near. The father leaned down. "What does he say?" Ori breathed slow. "He speaks of our hall. He says we hold strong. He says we waste their night. He says we cost them pride." Runar's eyes narrowed. "Pride cuts sharp." Ori listened deeper. "He says they strike at first light. He says they break door. He says they take hall." The father looked at the warriors. "Then we hold harder." Ori stood and walked toward the fire. He stared into the glow. His hair hung loose, his face marked with ash. He whispered, "We hold, but we think too. We see night before it comes." The father walked closer. "Explain." Ori pointed toward the back wall. "They expect door to break first, but we break their plan." Runar stepped forward. "How?" Ori looked at the father. "When they strike door at dawn, we let them in small." The warriors stared. "Let them in?" Ori nodded. "Yes, small space, just few, not many. We trap them inside." Runar's jaw tightened. "Narrow fight, short blades, close ground." The father nodded slow. "We kill few inside, others outside, fear." Ori pointed at the back wall. "Then they push there. We hold here." The elder stood tall. "We break their rush by breaking their shape." The father looked at Ori with new weight. "Boy, you guide more than hearing." Ori lowered his eyes. "I watch how night moves." The tribe moved to shape the hall for the plan. Warriors gathered shields near the door. They stacked crates on both sides of the entry to create a narrow path. Runar tested the staff and cleared the space behind the crates. The father and 3 warriors positioned themselves near the back wall. Ori returned to his place. He pressed his ear to the wood again. He whispered. Leader sits now. He rests. Others sit too. They wait for dawn. The father spoke quietly. Then we rest for short moment. Only breath. No sleep. The warriors sat but kept weapons in hand. Runar leaned against a beam. The mother sat with the daughter wrapped in two furs. The elder lowered his head and breathed slow. Ori stayed kneeling. He did not rest. Outside, the storm pushed one last wave of snow over the valley. The wind slowed. The sky lightened with the first hint of dawn. A pale glow spread over the trees. The raiders rose. Ori felt it like pressure. He whispered, "They stand." The father rose. "Now?" Ori nodded. "Now." The warriors stood fast. Runar moved to position. The mother scooped the daughter into her arms and ducked low. The elder lifted his staff. Ori whispered again. They walked close, slow, shields ready, leader first. The father settled into stance. Then dawn meets us strong. Boots crunched outside. Snow slid under weight. Breath puffed against cold. Shadows filled the yard. Ori placed his hand on the door. He whispered. Three reached the door, leader behind them. They breathe short. They speak of pride. The father spoke low. Open gap when they strike. Only enough for few. Warriors nodded. Ori pressed his ear to the wood. He heard the leader lift his spear. He whispered. Now! The raiders slammed the door with full force. The top beam shook. The door cracked again. Warriors held strong. The leader shouted, "Break it now!" The raiders hit again, harder. The lower hinge broke. Snow burst inward. The father shouted, "Now! Pull it open!" Two warriors yanked the door inward, a small space. The gap opened just wide enough for two men. The raiders stumbled inside with raised shields. The father roared, "Trap them!" Warriors slammed crates toward the gap. The entry narrowed. The raiders inside looked around in confusion. Runar struck the first one in the throat with the staff. The warrior beside him cut the second across the arm. The raider hit the floor with a grunt. The leader outside shouted, "Push through!" Raiders shoved against the narrow gap, but only one fit at a time. Warriors stabbed through the small space. A raider cried out. Another fell back. Ori listened. He whispered, "Leader grows angry. He pulls two back. He sends one to back wall." The father nodded to the warriors stationed there. "Ready." Runar struck again. Another raider fell. The floor grew slick. Warriors pushed crates tighter. Snow swirled through the open gap. Ori whispered louder, "Back, now." The back wall shook as a raider struck it with all his weight. The warriors braced. Another hit, harder. Planks bent but held. Runar shouted. "They split!" The father barked orders. "Hold both sides." Ori breathed deep and listened through the chaos. He whispered, "Leader turns. He moves along wall. He seeks weakest board." The father stepped toward him. "Where?" Ori pointed. "Far right, near lower beam." The father ran there with two warriors at his side. They pressed shields against the spot. A heavy strike landed. The warriors grunted, but held. The leader shouted from outside. "Break them," Ori whispered. "They fail. They lose breath. They strike wrong." Snow fell from the roof in heavy sheets. Raiders outside stumbled as wind cut hard again. The narrow doorway blocked them. The back wall held. The side wall braced strong. Runar roared as he struck another raider through the gap. The father shouted, "Push them out!" Warriors shoved their weight. The raiders at the door stumbled backward into snow. Warriors slammed the door shut and dropped the bar across it. The hall shook with the final crash as the raiders hit the closed door in rage. Then silence. Ori waited. He whispered. They step back. They breathe heavy. They fail again. The tribe held still. Ori opened his eyes. Dawn breaks fully. They stand in light now. They retreat. The father stared at him. Retreat? Ori nodded. Yes, they fear more loss. They fear strong hall. They leave. The warriors exhaled at once. Runar dropped to one knee. The mother cried quiet tears. The elder lowered his staff. Ori listened longer. Their steps move away. They gather far. They speak anger. They speak of loss. They walk toward trees. They leave valley. The father placed both hands on Ori's shoulders. You saved us again. The hall stayed still long after the raiders' steps faded into the trees. The tribe did not cheer. They did not speak much. They breathed. They looked at each other with tired eyes. The fire glowed soft. Smoke drifted in slow paths. Snow settled across the roof in thick, quiet layers. Ori stood near the center of the hall. His hands hung at his sides. His breath eased. His hearing relaxed. But he still listened for the far valley. He waited for signs of return. He waited for the leader's heavy step. He waited for the call of rage. Nothing came. Only the slow quiet of morning. The father knelt in front of him. Boy, they leave for good? Ori pressed his ear to the floor again. The stillness held firm. The valley spoke no danger. The wind moved over snow without breaks, no footsteps, no breath, no weight. He whispered, They go far. They cross ridge. They will not return. The father lowered his head. His shoulders loosened. Then the hall breathes now. The warriors sat against the wall. Some cried without sound. Some held their blades close. Some stared at their hands as if uncertain how they still held strength. Runar sank to the floor and let his arms rest. His chest lifted with deep breaths. Sweat dried on his face. The mother stood with the daughter held close. The girl's small hand stayed tight around her mother's fur. She watched Ori with wide eyes. The elder placed his staff on the floor and leaned on it with both hands. We survive night. Dawn holds new steps. Ori looked toward the door. We check fence soon, but not now. We rest. The father nodded. We rest for short time. Warriors lay down near the fire. Some pulled furs across their legs. Some sat with backs to the wall, heads tilted forward. The mother made space for two younger boys. She stroked their hair as they drifted into sleep. Ori stayed standing. Runar opened one eye and looked at him. Sit, boy. You hold more than grown men. Ori shook his head. I listened still. Runar frowned. For what? Ori breathed slow. Her. Runar sat up straight. The woman who walked north. Ori nodded. She left before storm. She left before raiders. The father looked at him. You hear her? Ori listened for long moments. The hall held breath. The wind brushed the roof. Snow tapped the walls. The fire crackled. Then he whispered, She moves, slow, weak. She breathes with pain. The mother stood fast. She lives? Ori nodded. Yes, she reaches far ridge. She walks south now. Runar rose. She comes back. Ori listened again. She sees no raiders now. She walks fast again. The father stepped to the door. Then we go meet her when snow lifts. Ori lifted his hand. Wait. The father stopped. Ori pressed his ear to the wood. One more sound. The hall froze. Ori whispered, Not raiders, not man. Large steps, heavy body, near river. Runar's face tightened. Bear. The elder opened his eyes. Winter hunger, strong danger. Ori nodded. It walks near her path. The mother covered her mouth. She faces bear? Ori listened, sharply. Bear moves slow. Woman moves fast. They cross paths soon. The father lifted his axe. Then we go now. Ori listened harder. No, she changes path. She hears it. She climbs rocks. Bear passes under. The mother exhaled with shaking breath. Safe, Ori whispered. For now. The father lowered his axe. Then we wait for light and meet her halfway. Ori nodded. Yes. The tribe settled again. The fire gave slow warmth. Snow fell in soft waves. The hall took in its first hour of peace since night came. Runar shifted closer to Ori. You hear far beyond men. You hear what others cannot. Ori stared at the floor. I hear because I listen. Others do not. Runar nodded. Many hear wind. Few hear truth inside wind. The elder raised his staff a little. Boy, you hold gift. You hold burden too. Ori lowered his head. I hear much. I hear heavy things. The mother approached. You keep us alive with it. Ori's voice stayed soft. I listen for tribe. The father spoke from the door. And tribe follows you. Ori looked up with wide eyes. Me? The father nodded. Yes. You heard steps no man heard. You warned us before storm moved. You stopped raiders. You shaped plan, Runar added. You saved more than Hall. You saved future. Ori stepped back. I did what Night spoke. The father placed a hand on his shoulder. You changed our fate. No warrior here denies that. The tribe looked at Ori with faces that held new weight. Not dismissal, not annoyance, respect. Ori swallowed. Storm lifts now. The father looked toward the window. Light grows. Ori nodded. Snow slows. Wind softens. We go find her. The father signaled 3 warriors. Runar grabbed a cloak. The elder nodded once. Stay cautious. Bear stalks near river. The father looked at Ori. Where is Bear now? Ori closed his eyes. Bear walks north, slow, away from path. The father nodded. We walk safe then. The mother stepped forward. Bring her back warm. The daughter tugged at Ori's sleeve. Will she live? Ori bent down. Yes, she walks strong again. The father lifted the bar from the door. Snow spilled inward as he opened it. Cold air swept through the hall. Dawnlight touched the floor. The father, Runar, and 3 warriors stepped outside. Ori moved to the door. He whispered. They step safe, no raiders near. The father nodded and led the group into the valley. The door closed. The tribe inside breathed deep. Some slept. Some whispered thanks to quiet gods. The elder sat with his staff across his knees. Ori stood near the fire. He listened. He felt morning spread across snow. He felt the valley shift from fear to stillness. Minutes passed. Then he whispered. They reach her. The mother lifted her head. Safe? Ori nodded. Yes, she walks with them now. The elder closed his eyes again. Night leaves them. Ori sank to his knees, not from pain, from release. His hearing loosened. The hall grew louder, the crack of fire, the mumbling breaths of sleeping warriors, the soft rustle of straw. Sounds that felt close, simple. The mother walked to him. You sit now. Ori nodded. I sit. She wrapped a fur around his shoulders. Warmth filled his arms. The elder looked at him. Night tested you. Dawn marks you. Ori stared into the fire. I only listened. The elder shook his head. You saw what men with blades fail to see. You heard what saved us. Ori lowered his voice. I heard because no one else did, the elder answered. And that shapes tribes. The door creaked. Snow blew inward. The father stepped inside. The rescued woman leaned on Runar's arm. Her breath shook. Her hair stuck to her cheeks. The child in the hall ran to her. She smiled faintly and held out a trembling hand. The mother helped her sit near the fire. Runar gave her warm broth. The father set his axe down and bowed his head for a moment. The woman looked across the hall. Her gaze met Ori's, her eyes filled with tears. You kept me alive, Ori shook his head. I only heard your path. She nodded slowly. Hearing saves life. The father walked to the center of the hall and raised his voice for all to hear. We stand because one boy held night with us. We breathe because one boy listened when all slept. Warriors sat up straighter. Mothers held children closer. The rescued woman wiped her face. The elder tapped his staff on the floor. Let the tribe speak name now. Voices rose from every corner of the hall, slow at first, then steady, then full. Ori, Ori, Ori. The boy's breath caught in his throat. His hands trembled, his legs shook. He stood, unsure if he should bow or speak or hide. The father placed his hand on the boy's back. Stand proud. The tribe knows you now. Ori lifted his chin. I listen. I help. I guard night. The elder lifted his staff once more. Then you hold place among us. Outside, dawn broke fully across the valley. The ridge glowed bright. The snow sparkled. The raiders' tracks faded behind distance. Birds broke silence with first calls. Smoke rose from the hall's roof as the fire grew warm again. Inside, the tribe pulled close. Ori looked around at faces he once watched from shadows. They looked back with trust, with thanks, with something stronger. He whispered to himself, I hear my tribe now. The father spoke with a soft voice that carried across the hall. The forgotten boy holds us strong. He changed his entire tribe's fate. Ori closed his eyes. For the first time, he rested. Soft steps now. Slow breath, warm light. You stayed through every moment of this long night. Ori's story settles into quiet now, but the next tale waits. Another Viking life, another hidden figure whose choices shaped winters, storms, and tribes. I leave you with a small gift, a free guide I share in the next video, a simple piece on Viking daily rhythms, meant to calm your evenings. Stay warm, stay steady. Take one last breath with me, then rest. I will see you in the next story.